And welcome everyone to Beyond the Forecast. I am Chief Meteorologist Michael Stevens, and today I'm going to take you into two very important things that basically have to do with thunderstorms. First up, we're going to show you how to read severe weather when it comes to your basic radar. What colors are showing you and what the storm looks like, or what you can expect to see in that storm just from seeing it on radar. Yes, there's a bunch of fancy tools that can pick up rotation, that can pick up debris balls, but you can see those things if the storm is just right on reflectivity. So we're going to explain that. And then I'm going to tell you about a QLCS, or a quasi-linear convective system. What is it? Well, it's a big fancy name, but we will explain what it is and what it can do, because it is a pretty destructive line of storms. And then at the end, we're going to be looking at another segment from our Beyond the Forecast live streaming podcast. So we'll have all that coming up for you in the show. But before we get to that, let's dive in first to this day in weather history. This day, July 2nd, 1833, an unusually big New England tornado, which was half a mile to 3/4 of a mile wide, went from Salem Pond to Norton Pond, Vermont, and then into Canada. It flattened everything in its path. So this was back in 1833, very large tornado in Vermont that crossed into Canada. Pretty crazy. All right, trivia time. Yesterday, we wanted to know, when did the Dust Bowl occur? Was it the 1910s, 1950s, 1930s, or 2000s? Yeah, it was the 1930s. Today, we want to know, at what temperature is centigrade, or Celsius, equal to Fahrenheit? Is it 0, 32, 25 below, or 40 below? QR code right there. Hit that with your phone, and it'll take you to where you can answer. And then once you put your answer in, we will have the answer for you tomorrow on Beyond the Forecast. All right, weather word of the day. Today, the word, well, words again, is Bermuda high. What is a Bermuda high? We've talked about it and we've explained it on, if you've caught any of our forecasts. A Bermuda high is a high pressure system that it hangs around mainly in the northern regions of the Atlantic Ocean. But this gives us very warm, very muggy weather for the eastern half of the United States. Now, it also aids in hurricane development in the Atlantic. But Bermuda high is usually north of Bermuda and basically pinwheels in very warm, very muggy air into the southeastern portion of the U.S., but it also gets up here in the Great Lakes. That's why whenever you hear us say a Bermuda high, it means it's just going to be sunny and warm for a good chunk of time, basically in the southeast U.S., but it will reach up into Michigan. Bermuda high. All right, viewer photo of the day. Today's photo, as always, brought to you by Great Rooms. Today's picture comes to us from Lisa Shoemaker, and this one might be my favorite photo that we've had on the show so far. Today is episode 67, so we've gone through a lot of photos, but this one is awesome. Lisa sent in this amazing photo of a black bear taking a break to scratch before, quote, taking on the local bird feeder. I have named him Barney. His name is Barney the black bear. Lisa, thank you so much for sending in a picture of Barney. And as always, thank you to Great Rooms for sponsoring viewer photo of the day. All right, let's get you into the show, shall we? I'm going to take you into how to read a radar when it comes to a severe storm. What the storm looks like, what portions of the storms are reflecting to you, and what you need to know. We'll have that coming up right after the break. And welcome back, everyone, to Beyond the Forecast. I am Chief Meteorologist Michael Stevens, and today we're going to tell you how to see a supercell and identify a tornado with reflectivity on radar. It's not very easy. That's why we show you velocities. It's easier to pick up rotation that way and also see where a tornado might be on the ground. But with reflectivity, or what you normally see on the radar, there's ways of indicating what you're seeing with a thunderstorm. And we're going to go through some of those key pieces. So when you do look at a radar and reflectivity like this, you'll know what you're looking at or what could possibly be forming. So the key parts to a supercell displayed on radar is when you get the very dark colors, like these purple and blacks, that is a hail core. And the reason that is that color is because hail is more reflective.
So as that beam is going into the storm and returning back the information, it is very reflective, hence why it is more of that purple and also black. Now, the other thing with a supercell, you can see the majority of storm is right here, that bigger blob moving to the north. Once you start seeing a little bit of a hook, that is what we call a hook echo, or you start seeing a tornado forming. That is really the only way that you could really see it on radar in reflectivity mode, is because of this hook that starts to develop. Now, it doesn't mean every hook with every storm is going to be a tornado, but a key meteorology 101 setup is a supercell with the majority of the storm in one spot, and then the inflow and outflow is creating that hook echo. And that is where you start seeing tightening and rotation and tornado. And that's usually below the storm. When you look back at the Gaylord tornado that we had just a few years ago, that was a meteorology 101 setup. A supercell, majority of the storm north of Gaylord, the hook echo dropped down, and that is where we had that tornado following that storm. So when we take a look at that hook echo, as we just told you about, key regions for a supercell displayed on a radar, that is right there. So that little debris ball that we were showing you, or that little setup just below a storm, doesn't look like anything major on a radar, right? Because this is probably what would attract your eyes, where you have all the reds, the purples, and the blacks. But this little bitty red to the south of it, that is where you have that rotation, that tornado. So it's right here where you have the cold upper level winds and the warm southern winds. And those southern or surface winds. So you have that cold air and that warmer air wrapping in right there. And that's what's creating that rotation and also possibly flipping it to vertical to reach the ground. So you have the heavy rain to the north, the hail core in the middle, and then you have that rotation where you have the inflow and outflow boundary layers right there, creating that rotation. That is how you would see on the radar, or reflectivity mode on a radar. So the brighter colors, that pink to black, indicates extremely heavy precipitation, usually points towards hail because it is more reflective, like we were just telling you. But notice the inflow, outflow. That is where you need to be the concern, or have your eyes drawn towards. That is where you could have the rotation. That is where you could have a tornado when you're looking at a basic radar. So those strong winds from the surface and from the upper levels help tighten rotation, and also helps take the horizontal rotation that you have and stack it vertically. And that's where you start getting the tightening and also a tornado to form. A debris ball indicates debris thrown into the air. This is a good indicator of a tornado. Usually with a debris ball, we use what we call we use what's called coefficient correlation. And that will give you a better idea of what's supposed to be in the atmosphere and what's not. When there's a darker blue, that's not supposed to be in the atmosphere. And that's where you can usually see the hail, or I should say the storm, or debris ball. That's where you can usually pick up a debris ball. This hook echo, yeah, where you have that, what looks to be just a smaller storm south of that, that looks more like a small storm. That's actually where the tornado is. That's the debris ball that it is throwing up in the atmosphere. So now let's talk about the gust front, because this can also be damaging as it's moving to the east. Those strong winds from inside the storm push ahead of the storm. That is where you'll see winds all of a sudden as the shelf cloud moves through. You'll see the winds pick up right after that shelf cloud moves through. That is the gust front. And then on the back side of it is where you start seeing the rotation, where you have the inflow and outflow. And that is where you start seeing that tornado or debris ball start to form in radar. So that's kind of how you pick up with reflectivity mode. Reflectivity is the standard radar mode that you usually see, whether it's on TV or whether it is on an app. This is the standard color, gradient, everything that you would see on a radar. When it comes to us showing you velocities, there are apps that you can pick to choose to see velocity if you have winds going in and out, or if you wanted to see the correlation coefficient where you can see possibly a debris ball. Those are a little bit different, and those come with different apps. It's a little more of the science tool apps. But with normal radar, this is how you would tell if there's rotation or possibly a tornado. Now, again, every storm, you're not going to be able to see a lot of rotation in standard reflectivity for radar. This just however, happens to be the very, very quintessential Meteorology 101 setup where the bulk of the storm is here, cold air aloft, warm air under. That starts creating that hook echo. And when you have a hook echo, that is indicative, usually, of a tornado forming or at the surface. So that's kind of how you see things with radar and reflectivity mode. So there you go. A little bit of science and weather to help you use the Doppler 910 weather app, which you can always get for free, and you'll have a little more information now when you use it. We'll have more with Beyond the Forecast coming up right after the break. And welcome back, everyone, to Beyond the Forecast. Today, we are going to take a look at QLCS. You might have heard us refer to this before, but it is Quasi-Linear Convective System. What is that? What does that mean? Well, it's just a line of storms that can be severe, that can spawn tornadoes, downbursts, just a line of severe weather. And we tend to see these at times in northern Michigan, but it is essentially a family of storms moving as a line. So you'll see this line, QLCS here, and what it does is continues to just kind of spawn and feed off that convective air in front of it, being a line of extremely gusty winds, possibly damaging winds, could spawn tornadoes, could give you downbursts, which could give you straight line winds as well. So again, a QLCS, a family of storms along a line that can create severe weather, or is basically a whole line of severe weather. But it happen any time of the year, and they can form through different processes, but can also form bowing segments. Now, how you get the bowing segments, like kind of right here, you see it right here, the winds behind it are just a little bit stronger, so it starts bowing out. And once you start getting that bowing of the line, you start getting a little bit of rotation from those winds. And that's where we just told you about how to read rotation from reflectivity on a radar. That is where you start seeing that setup along a line of storms. Not the typical one that we just showed you, but more on a line with rotational off. So a little bit different. But let's take a look at kind of the certain sections here that kind of give you an idea what this QLCS means. So the low reflectivity behind line is where you get the strong downdraft winds. So back here on the backside of the storm, you have the initial storm moving through, and then on the backside of it is where you get the extremely gusty winds, or those downdraft winds. And then the low reflectivity ahead line, the updrafts, which is right here in front of the storm. So how convection works is you have that warm air rising quickly in front of the storm, and then on the backside, you have the cold air going down extremely fast after the storm passes through. So that's what's feeding the storm line, and then that's what's the product of the storm line. Warm air feeds it, cold, strong winds on the backside of it is the result of that. And then here, where you have that bowing effect like we were showing you, that is where you could possibly have a tornado because of rotation. And then you can see the bow echo right there. Boop. And once you have that bow, that's where you need to stop, look, be a little more attentive, because those winds could possibly produce or take the horizontal rotation and flip it vertically. So that QLCS, that is what you can see move through at any time of the year, really, but you have to have that very warm convective air on a line, kind of stretching from north to south across the whole state. So how does this all form, and what do you need to be on the lookout for on days like today's? When you have that warm, muggy air. So let's take our viewing area, for example, Sault Ste. Marie down towards Midland. When you have warm, muggy air from the UP all the way down to the central lower, that is usually indicative of, one, all that air, that moisture that those storms can feed off of. When you see a line that's formed over towards Wisconsin, it is going to continue to roll and feed off that warm, muggy air. So that QLCS structure is warm air rises ahead of the storm. So that warm air rises quickly, continuing to feed those storms as they move east. And then those new storms develop, and that just repeats. It's like respawning storms over and over and over until it runs out of that warm, moist air. And then on the occasion, can produce tornadoes with that line of storms, or it can give you downbursts, which can give you damaging winds, or possibly even straight line winds. So there's many different factors of severe weather with a QLCS, the quasi-linear convective system. So you have a very long stretch of storms, a family of storms, that is usually moving east to west that can bow, creating issues, but it can also just give you a myriad of severe weather. It doesn't have to be just one thing you have to be on the lookout for. It can be several things. And a lot of them are wind-based because it is feeding quickly off that warm air, and then you get those extremely strong downdrafts on the backside of the storm. So that's a QCLS for you, or QLCS, excuse me, quasi-linear convective system. Throw that one out to your friends next time you see one on the radar. We'll have more coming up on Beyond the Forecast.
And welcome back, everyone, to Beyond the Forecast. I am Chief Meteorologist Michael Stevens. Yesterday, meteorologist Haley Fischetti and I sat down for our live streaming Beyond the Forecast podcast, where every Tuesday at 10 a.m. we sit down and we talk with you, the viewers, live about certain topics, or we just talk about weather stuff. And it's a lot of fun. Yesterday, we sat down, didn't really have a topic in particular to talk about, and we were talking about it being July and heat, as well as humidity, dry heat, or heat and humidity. And we also continued to talk about summer weather. Check it out.
That's true. If you have lung issues, you definitely want a dry heat.
Yeah.
You definitely don't want to. You don't want more moisture. No.
Yeah, the humidifiers you would have to buy.
I will say, in the dry heat, you don't have to worry about mowing your lawn.
That is true. Yeah.
Here, your lawn grows like a jungle because it's moisture.
But that is like so nice. Like we talk about like how we felt like summer kind of like didn't hit until like mid-June. Like seeing everything bloom in like 4 days was really, really cool. Like serotonin went.
I'm not gonna lie. This is probably the happiest the plants have been in Michigan in forever.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna say this. I don't know if it's just me or what, but the bugs are way down this year.
Yes.
I have not seen bugs at all.
Knock on wood. There's no wood here, but knocking on wood. Mosquitoes.
Skeeters I've seen a little bit of this year, but I haven't seen June bugs. I have not seen mayflies. I have not seen anything that I normally see in northern Michigan when it comes to bugs.
Yeah.
But like my apple tree is flourishing.
Yeah, honestly,
all of my flowers in my front yard are just going nuts.
Nothing's really like being like eaten by anything or just like
my roses, my bee balm, our azaleas, our wildflowers on our hill, like everything is going nutso. We even had flowers that we planted years ago that we thought were dead, haven't come back. They started blooming this year.
They just need a better climate.
They just needed better weather. I was like, whoa.
Good to see you guys.
Good to see you guys. Clematis. That's what it is, a clematis, the vine with the purple flower.
Oh, yeah.
We put them on our fence years ago, and we got them 1 year, and we haven't seen them since. They were back this year. We saw hummingbirds this year.
Yeah.
That was the first time at our house that we've seen many hummingbirds.
Really?
Everything was happy with the slower spring.
Yes.
Maybe not for the bugs. I don't know where the bugs went, but I'm
I don't
okay
know
with
the bugs went either. Maybe I'm not looking hard enough. I don't want to
see more
look.
spiders, but maybe that took care of the bug problem. I don't know.
Oh, that could have been it, though.
Maybe it's frogs. Maybe we have more frogs.
That could be something interesting to look at, too.
Because I did find a toad.
Weather.
He was under our pool.
Really? Well, that makes sense. It's kind of where they like to hang out.
I don't know how he got under there, but he was under our pool.
That's crazy.
I was like, look at this guy.
Yeah, I wonder like how weather impacts tadpole populations.
I don't know. Are toads the same as frogs?
No, but I don't know the difference.
How are toads born? Are they tadpoles? Can't be, can they?
I don't
Chat.
know.
Scientist to scientist. How are toads born?
Let's
They're not eggs, are they? They're amphibians, right?
are
Or are they reptiles? They're reptiles, right? No, they're amphibians.
no, they're also into
Tadpoles?
tadpoles.
So I wonder where my toad came from then. We
But
always
some
have
toads don't have tadpoles. I'm confused.
Things meteorologists ask
Natural
others.
History Museum says why toads don't have why some toads don't have tadpoles.
Okay.
But that's UK. Maybe that's an English thing.
They're different on each continent.
Yeah, I don't know.
We got sidetracked, but
And there you go. A lot of fun. Join us every Tuesday, 10 a.m. for the Beyond the Forecast live streaming podcast on the 910 News YouTube channel, 910 News Facebook page. And then we are working hard and diligently to get them up on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, wherever you take your podcasts in. They will be there eventually. So that's it for our show today. Huge thank you to meteorologist John Gross, as well as meteorologist Haley Fischetti. I'm Chief Meteorologist Michael Stevens. Thank you for joining us here again at 4:30 in your afternoon. We'll be back here tomorrow at 4:30 for more Beyond the Forecast. Be good, stay safe, take care. Bye, everybody.